Welcome back to Tales of Thailand. Today's story is from subscriber Big Dave from Scotland. This one is about moving to Thailand for a fresh start, getting pulled in by the excitement, and learning the hard way that temptation can quietly turn into a trap. Let's hear from Big Dave in his own words. By the end of it all, I was sitting there looking at the bills, the mortgage, and the mess I'd got myself into, wondering how it had all gone so wrong. Thailand had started out as the answer to a problem. I was getting fed up with work back home, I was close to the later part of my career, and I wanted a better life. I wanted somewhere I could earn a decent living, enjoy myself a bit more, and maybe make my money go further before I retired. I was a qualified teacher and I'd started looking at jobs overseas. Thailand kept standing out. It looked like a good place to work, a good place to live, and maybe a good place to finish off my career. So I went for it. Once I started seriously looking, it all seemed to make sense. I applied for jobs, got offered a few positions pretty quickly, and chose an international school. The money wasn't bad, and I thought I was making a sensible decision. I handed in my notice, packed up my life in England, and got ready to leave. I was 51 years old. I'd never been to Thailand before, and I'd never even been to Asia. So yes, I was excited, but I was nervous too. Once my house back home was rented out and everything was in place, there was no easy turning back. The flight over felt like one of those moments where you know life is about to change properly. I had a couple of whiskeys at the airport, partly to calm the nerves and partly because, well, flying was never my favorite thing. Then I got on the plane, and after that, it was happening whether I liked it or not. When I landed in Bangkok, it all hit me at once. The city was loud, busy, hot, and completely different from anything I was used to. Someone from the agency met me at the airport, which was a massive help, and took me to the hotel. Straight away, I knew I was in for something completely new. The first few days were all about taking everything in. I went to MBK, wandered around Khao San Road, saw Chinatown, and just tried to get a feel for the place. Bangkok felt alive in a way I'd never experienced before. Then the paperwork started, work permit, visa, all the official stuff. I made sure it was all done properly because I wasn't interested in doing anything dodgy. I'd worked too hard to risk messing it all up. Before work officially started, I had a bit of time to myself, and that's when things started to get interesting. I'd never really been a nightlife person back home, but Thailand has a way of making things feel different. More open, more normal, less judged. So one night I found myself on Soy Cowboy. That place was a shock. Bright lights, loud music, people everywhere. It was a world away from anything I'd known in the UK. But in Thailand it didn't feel hidden or secretive. It just felt like part of the city. And that was the start of the temptation. I went in for a drink, then another, and before long I was getting pulled into that whole side of life. After that I went to Phuket, rode around on a motorbike, and spent plenty of time around Bangla Road too. Then I ended up in Chiang Mai, which I loved for the scenery and the roads. But even there I found myself being drawn toward the same sort of places. Back home, I could go ages without thinking about pubs or bars. In Thailand, it was different. It was easy to tell myself I was just enjoying the experience, but looking back, I can see I was getting caught up in it. And then I met her. Now, I told myself right from the beginning not to fall for a girl in Thailand, but that's easier said than done when you're lonely, excited, and far away from home. The connection was quick. It felt strong. It felt special. And before long, I was telling myself I'd found something real. She knew how to keep me interested. She was sharp. She knew exactly what she was doing, and I was probably too naive to see the warning signs properly. What I thought was love started to feel more and more like a relationship built on what I could provide. She moved into my condo not long after that. She had 2 children, an ex-husband who was in jail, and a life that was very different from mine. She'd come from a village and had worked in bars to support her family. I saw all that and thought she was tough, maybe even stronger than me in some ways. At the time, I didn't question much. I just wanted to believe it was real. We started spending all our time together. I stopped going out on my own as much, and instead we'd go to more local places together. After about 6 months, we got married. I even had friends fly over from England for the wedding. We did it in Bangkok, and for a while I felt like I'd made the right choice. I had a job I liked, a wife, a life in Thailand. Everything seemed to be lining up. For the first couple of years, I was happy enough. But slowly, things started shifting. The first big one was property. She started talking about buying a house, and at first it felt like a normal future conversation. But once we started looking, it became clear that whatever we bought would be tied up with a lot of responsibility. We found a house in Rangsit and I put the money in. Then later we looked at another one. The idea was that they'd help us long-term, maybe even support retirement. That was the theory. In reality, it became a lot more complicated. The houses weren't bringing in the kind of rent we expected. The mortgage was still there. The commute to work started to become a headache, and I was working harder and harder just to keep everything afloat. Then I lost my job. That changed everything. I found another one, but it paid less, and suddenly I was living in a tiny room near work while still carrying the weight of everything else. I was paying for the house, paying for the bills, paying for the whole setup, and it started to feel like I was the only one under pressure. That's when the relationship started to feel less like a partnership and more like a transaction. I was doing the working, the paying, the stressing, and trying to keep everything going. She was living in the house, and from my point of view, it started to feel very one-sided. We had our first proper argument when I finally said how unfair it all felt. After that, she suggested selling my house in England to clear the debt in Thailand. I didn't want to at first, but I was under pressure and I eventually agreed. Once the money came through, the mortgage was paid off. For a little while, that felt like a huge relief, but it didn't really solve the problem. It just pushed it further down the road. The money started disappearing again, and we ended up trying to make another long-term plan with more property. On paper, it sounded clever. In reality, it was just more risk, more pressure, and more chance for things to go wrong. And when I look back, that's really the lesson in all of it. Thailand wasn't the problem. The place itself gave me great experiences, a new life, and opportunities I wouldn't have had at home. But I let myself get carried away. I got caught up in the excitement, the nightlife, the attention, and one relationship that I didn't think through properly. That's what made it dangerous. I was vulnerable. I was lonely. I wanted the new life to work so badly that I ignored things I probably shouldn't have ignored. And once the emotions, money, and property all got mixed together, it became much harder to think clearly. So when I think about Thailand now, I don't just think about the good times. I think about temptation. I think about bad judgment. And I think about how easy it is to convince yourself that you're building a future when really you're walking straight into a mess. So that's Big Dave's story, a move to Thailand that started with hope turned into temptation and ended up teaching him a hard lesson about love, money, and judgment. What do you make of it? Do you think Thailand was just the setting, or do you think he was always heading for trouble once he got caught up in the lifestyle? Drop your thoughts in the comments, give the video a like if you enjoyed the story, and subscribe to Tales of Thailand for more real stories from Thailand.